All right, guys, we are going to go through our contest picks for Survivor and for Millions, which is any contest you have where you're picking 5+ spreads every week, as well as the regular Survivor stuff. Of course, we're in a bunch of them. We're still in most of them, and hopefully we can keep on rolling. It's been a chalky Survivor start, but we're alive and everything. So why don't we go ahead and take a look? We'll start with Survivor, and then we'll move on into the spread stuff. For Survivor, of course, we are out of both spread Survivors where you pick one spread every week. The first one that went out was Ravens week 1, which was a horrible loss. And then we had Broncos -1 week 2, and that was also a pretty horrible loss. So really unfortunate to not have both those entries, but they're both gone, and that's just the way she goes. And so what we have now is just regular Survivor. We have 5 paid ones, one with a $500 winning fee, and then we have 2 entries in the Bet Online contest and 2 entries in Circa with the $1,000 entries in the $18 million prize pool. And we've still got both of our Circa ones, so hopefully we can keep rolling on that. And we'll start with the Circa ones. Why not? We have 2 entries, as we said. They're a bit different. We used Ravens twice last week. I know we didn't have one of these videos last week. I was dealing with a bit of something and couldn't quite get it out. But we did Ravens last week pretty much across the board in our Survivors. We had 4 Ravens, 1 Cowboys in the paid Survivor there. We got our Cowboys across. We got the Ravens across comfortably. So our Circa Survivor entries now read Cardinals Ravens and Broncos Ravens. So we're going to go from there. And we have 2 different picks this week. I want to split them up. I don't want to do 2 together unless, I'm really comfortable with something in which doesn't have necessarily future equity. Kind of want to get through the first couple weeks, but it's probably time we start playing the game instead of just trying to survive week to week. So we have 2 this week. Our Cardinals Ravens entry is going to get the Seahawks. That is the chalk of the week. Should be the heaviest used team this week, I would think. And look, they don't have a ton of future equity. There's very few spots where we're going to be able to use the Seahawks comfortably. This is one of them. Got to grab it against the Saints team that has shown some life, but also offensively has really struggled for the most part. And this is a Seahawks defensive line that should deal with the run game pretty well, and make Rattler beat him. It'll be kind of tough, and we'll see. Seahawks today had JSN pop up on the injury report, which is a worry, but hopefully the offense clicks. I think if the offense gets to 23 here, there's very few ways where they lose the football game at that point. So we'll see if they can get there. And then we are Circa pick number 2. This is Broncos Ravens. That one gets the Packers. Like the Packers here, and the Packers have future equity on Thanksgiving. They're at Detroit. I'm willing to sacrifice one of those. Again, Thanksgiving, I'm holding out that the Bears are still bad and the Eagles are decent. And we're just going to get the Eagles at home versus the Bears in prime time. And that's kind of where we're looking right now. The other games, Chiefs at Cowboys, Packers at Lions, and Bengals at Ravens. Obviously Joe Burrow goes down, and that's the spot you want now with the Ravens. But, that's where she goes, and those are what we have to pick from, and we've used the Ravens, so we can't howl about it now. And Packers are probably just not one we're going to use on that day. And if we are, we have them in the other entry for now, as long as that survives. And it's a Packers team. Defensively is really good against an offense that has problems with Cleveland. So I'm pretty hopeful that the Packers defense wins this football game and the offense does just enough, because I do think that Browns defense is pretty solid, but I think the Packers get over the line here. So those are our 2 in Circa, and those are our 2 in Bet Online as well. Bet Online number 1 is Eagles Ravens. That one gets Packers. And then Broncos Cowboys gets Seahawks. We did it that way because I want, obviously, kind of want to keep it sort of even, but any entry we can get out that has the least amount of good teams in it is probably the way to go. So Broncos, Cowboys, Seahawks is a significantly better option than Eagles, Ravens. And then, Eagles, Ravens, Seahawks, Broncos, Cowboys, Packers. we're looking at a lot of equity still in the second one. If we do Broncos, Cowboys, Seahawks, and the Seahawks get through, then we're still holding Ravens, we're still holding Bills, we're still holding Packers, we're still holding Eagles. Like, we're still holding all that. So hopefully we can kind of get through that. And then the last one, this one is the $500 winner one. There's only 46 people left in this one. So this one I'm kind of just trying to survive week to week. But again, Seahawks don't have a ton of future equity. We're going to grab them here and, kind of just go with the chalk a little bit and see if we can survive. As for ESPN, we started with 25. We had 22 at the end of last week. We had 22 to start this week. We had 22 at the end of week 1. We have 22 now still, as all of them get through with a variety of different things. Not going to go through each entry and what they look like, but we have 10 Seahawks, and we tried to sprinkle them all out throughout on the quote-unquote entries that had, similar to Bet Online number 2, the ones that had used worse teams, and we're trying to get the Seahawks through on those. So we have 10 Seahawks, 5 Packers, and then we sprinkled it out a little bit, 2 Falcons, and then we go Steelers 1, Cowboys 1, Commanders 1, though that Commanders don't recommend without Jaden Daniels, 49ers 1, Texans 1. Just trying to get a few extra different teams in there. Again, you get 22 entries here, and the chances of genuine survival and winning the point spread thing there with them is very, very small. It's not like, I don't think it's like a regular Survivor. I think the point differential is important here. So we're just trying to kind of sprinkle a few games in there, but more importantly, Seahawks on our worst entries, and hopefully we can kind of get over the line there. As for our spread entries, we've got 3 of them. Bet Online has 2. We have 2 on Bet Online. We have 1 in Circa, and my dad has a Circa one. We keep track of my dad's one because why not? And my dad used to gamble a little bit, so we'll get his opinion in on there. Our number 1 for Bet Online is just line value, just kind of testing that out and doing a variety of different things with that. It's 5-5 so far. And the line value this week in that one is Texans +2. That's down to +1. Broncos +3. Again, this will be kind of tight as it goes on. The season goes on. We're probably just going to have to end up picking our own for a couple of these. But, Broncos +3. It's -2.5 a lot of places. Colts -3.5. That's 4.5 a variety of different places. Giants +6. 5.5 floating around. And Ravens -4.5. That also has 5.5 floating around. So we're hopeful. We'll see. We'll see how much the line value ends up with. And obviously, if it doesn't win anything, which it probably won't, we're looking at, getting a little bit of info on just where the line movements really do some of these things. So we'll see there. My Bet Online entry, this one is 4-5-1. So not quite 5-5-1 like the other one, 4-5-1. We've been kind of unlucky on this one. We've been unlucky on both of ours. The Broncos last week, the Ravens the week before. We're 5-5 pretty much on both, and we should be 7-3, but that's kind of how she goes. And so these 2 entries are the same for the most part. Obviously, the lines kind of float out different because Bet Online gets theirs out a little bit earlier, and Circa gets theirs out on the Thursdays, and it's more toward you get sharper lines in there, so every once in a while they're a little bit different. But same ones, essentially. Texans +2 in both. Ravens -4.5 in both. Chargers -2.5 Circa, -3 Bet Online. Commanders -3.5. This is a bad one. We went at that one. I thought Jaden might still find a way to play here. Not quite the case. So we got a Mariota -3.5 there. And then we have 49ers -2.5 Circa, -1.5 Bet Online. So those are the ones we like this week. Again, I'm going to bet most of these. We bet Texans +2 with our $10 free bet on Bet Online for our $1 to $1 million challenge. Probably going to bet some Ravens just in a different way. Probably going to bet some Chargers. Probably going to bet some Niners. Commanders, not so much, especially now. It was never a plan to bet on that, but especially now. There were some thoughts in there about Jets +6.5. Didn't mind that. Bucks are melting on offensive line, and if the Jets defense is okay today or on Sunday, then if the offense gets to 17, it probably gets over the line. But we'll see there. There were a couple other ones I considered. Vikings, because so many of the sharper people were going to be directly on Bengals. Maybe you can get something on Vikings -2, -2.5. Some stuff like that, but not quite there. I also considered Saints +7. I think that can be low scoring enough where they could, put up 14 and still cover. So there are a couple thoughts in there, but in the end, we went with, the ones we liked, and hopefully we can get over the line. My dad, who's also 5-5, who also had Ravens and Broncos, he's got a few different ones than we do. He has 49ers -2.5, Commanders -3.5. They don't quite, the Commanders one, obviously, we talked about. Those are the same as me. And then he has his own here. Colts -4. He believes in the Colts start to the season. Cowboys -1. That's one I've seen flown around quite a bit this week. And with the Bears injuries in the secondary, why not? And then Saints +7. That was one we looked at, we talked about, but I couldn't get over the line with it. In the end, I personally ended up taking the Chargers, I think was the last one there. So there we are. Those are our picks. Those are our bets, or not bets. Those are our picks. And hopefully in Survivor, we get through. And there's some carnage at some stage, just not with us. So we're rooting for Panthers. Who else we rooting for? Who else is bound to be live this week? Titans. One we're rooting for. Probably, maybe Cowboys might be up there. Giants. I assume the Chiefs will get some love, though I'm not particularly excited about laying that offense against that defense. So there are a couple things we're rooting for. It's been a very chalky first 2 weeks, and week 3 tends to be a very upset-heavy week. It tends to be just a mix of public perception with not a lot of sample size versus this is the NFL, and 2 weeks of sample size doesn't really mean anything. And how much do we throw out our priors coming into, week 3, 4, 5 type stuff. So it's an interesting week where everything kind of converges. My assumption is that somebody drops somewhere. Let's just hope it's not the Seahawks or Packers, and go from there, guys. But that's it. There we are. We'll see where we are next week.